Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics live on Trust TV, your home for everything politics, policy, and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmad. Now, the political atmosphere in Nigeria is reaching a boiling point, with tensions escalating between the ruling party and members of the opposition. Accusations and counter-accusations dominate the landscape, fueling division and uncertainty as the nation inches closer to a critical juncture. Now, this charged environment is leaving many wondering what the future holds for Nigeria's democracy. Caught in the middle are ordinary Nigerians already battling a biting economy that shows no signs of easing. With rising inflation, dwindling purchasing power, and mounting hardship, the political clashes only add to the frustration and despair felt across the country. For many, the question isn't just about politics, it's about survival. Tonight on the program, we dissect these issues and their broader implications for Nigeria's peace and progress. And join the conversation tonight will be Ishaya Inuwa Durkwa. He's a political commentator and development expert who will be helping us provide insight into the unfolding dynamics and offer a perspective on what Nigerians should be expecting in the next couple of weeks, months, and a year from the 2027 elections. We're going to take a quick break. The conversation starts afterwards. Join us again. Welcome back to the program. In case you just joined us, well, you're watching Daily Politics, and we're just about to kick things off for tonight's conversation as we focus on the state of politics in Nigeria today, its impact on Nigeria's ever-growing democracy, as well as on the lives and livelihood of the people of the country. You can also join the conversation by joining our YouTube and Facebook live stream so you don't miss out on our conversation tonight. You can do so by following us across our Facebook and YouTube channels. You can also visit our website, trusttv.com, so you don't miss out on this and many other of our contents available. Now, let's bring in our guest for tonight's conversation. Mr. Ishaya Inuwa Durkwa is a political commentator and development expert to speak on this ever-changing landscape of Nigeria's murky political arena. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Good evening to you.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here, and good evening, viewers and listeners all over the country.
First things first, I want to get your general view on the political atmosphere in the country. I mean, 2027 sounds like a couple of years away, but if you read the body language of the political actors, from the ruling party to the members of the opposition, it feels like the elections are just some months away. What do you make of it vis-a-vis the impact of the conversation on the polity? Yeah, so
it's important, if you want to score a point, to start ahead of time. The political landscape is quite difficult and tough in Nigeria today. So little wonder the political parties and different political leaders are beginning to talk, discuss, align and realign, because you've got to start on time. Otherwise, you might not be able to make any meaningful impact in the election. As of the polity, yeah, I mean, it's always cause and effect. So it is okay if the polity is heated or impacted by all of these alignments and realignments. It is rightly so, it is expected to. But I think anybody that wants to make a significant impact in the 2027 election, that person need to start preparing now, because 2027 is just like the wink of the eye.
And how much of it is noise and how much of it is actually adding value to the conversation about national development?
Yeah, so to a large significant, a lot of noise, because almost everything is at speculative level. Speculations, you hear of claims and counterclaims, you hear PDP and APCs in PDP and Labour parties in conversation. You hear a rebuttal of that. You hear Peter Obi and Atiku in conversation, and then you hear Obi saying, no, we've not discussed that. So, but people are seeing them, people are seeing the movements. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, there was a meeting at SCP, National Secretariat in Abuja. So all of these are giving reasons and fueling this speculation. We're talking about national development. It's not even a subject we want to talk about necessarily, because every now and then it appears as if national development is not the subject of conversation, but rather party. We want our party to win. But people are all encompassed with, that is what their obsession is, to grab power, to acquire power, to maintain power, and to use it to administer statuses and resources as against national development, because it's been a while since we experienced real national development. And if you ask me questions on why I mean this, I can give you answers to it. So I think it's far from national development, but rather noise, claims and counterclaims, speculations. But we are watching the phenomenon as it evolves.
And would you say that we are in any way, shape, or form maturing as a democracy, given the nature of the conversation, the topics of the conversation by the party in power, whether at state level or at the federal level, and the conversations that has been engineered by members of the opposition? Do you think our democracy is evolving? Is it maturing?
I do not think it is. Last election, if you look at the presidential election, there were only about 29% of Nigerians that voted, less than 23 million Nigerians out of nearly 200 million, well, we can say 180 million or even 170 million if we remove minors from the number. But what accounts for that little fraction of people out of the multitude of people to go to the polls? It tells you that something is inherently wrong with democracy here in our climb. And I do not believe that we have made progress. People would be talking about the fact that democracy has been sustained in Nigeria since 1999. It has not been interrupted. And it is true, it has not been interrupted. But if democracy is all about power acquisition and perpetuation of certain group of people or interests as against national development and human development, then I don't think we need democracy. So what you will see is, for us to say that democracy has been developing, or we have developed, or we are even developing as a people, we have to look at what does governance give to the people. Because the essence, the end game of democracy is that lives are better, is that the nation prospers, is that there is peace and stability. It's like at least the two cardinal duty or functions of any government is actualized. And what are those? Welfare and protection. And on these two counts, we have failed woefully as a people, So I do not think we are developing. But it is not to say we have not made any attempt in the direction of progress since we've been able to sustain it. But far from sustaining democracy, also democracy being sustained, is the fact that I do not think we are making progress, because the end goal of governance is that the lives of people and individuals are better. But sadly, this is not the reality. This is not what we are seeing in our nation.
Well, it's evident that Nigeria has been politically active before the election and after the election. And to this day, a lot of people still feel as if we're in some sort of campaign season. On both sides, the ruling party is campaigning for continuity, even though the elections are not here yet. And the opposition are trying to sell their various agenda to the Nigerian population. Give me a sense of what you think is shaping the conversation for 2027. While some think there's still time, as you said, the time is now for everybody to pretty much begin to imprint their ideas about what Nigerians need to look at ahead of 2027. What do you make of the conversation and the issues that are shaping the conversations for 2027?
Well, number one, we need to know, and going back to our previous conversation, that success is predicated upon planning. He who plans, he who does not plan has failed. So if people want to win, they need to start planning. And I think in the midst of all the noise and the meetings and claims and counterclaims is the fact that people are trying to plan for 2027. And that needs to be done, because you are coming against a formidable government that is in power. But talking about what is fueling all of this is discontent. Promises made that have not been kept, promises made that have not been seen. When you think of economy, you know, there has been claim or promises by the sitting government that we are going to create jobs. Well, someone might say it's too early because the government is just beginning to gain traction. But how long would we wait to begin to see that? Because instead of seeing employment and people getting jobs, what we are seeing is that people are even losing their jobs. And then you can think about inflation. You can think about quality of life in general. And of course, you can think about security. None of this is adding up. And I believe this is what is shaping the conversation. And those who are thinking about 2027, I think, are coming from a place where they believe they have something to offer, or they can change this narrative, you know. And so that is what is fueling the conversation. And we will just keep watching as things unfold by all of these players.
What about the electorate? What is your reading so far? Because there seems to be an overwhelming evidence to show that Nigerians do not necessarily go with the facts of the matter when trying to decide who they're going to vote for into the National Assembly, into the state legislature, into the government houses at the state level, or into the presidency here in Abuja. Do you think the facts of perhaps the performance of the Tinubu administration will weigh in on the decision of Nigerians when they vote in 2027? Or do you think people are still in their silos, already decided on who they're going to vote for, irrespective of what happens to the economy, how well the reforms work out, or how underwhelming the reforms end up becoming?
Well, I will tell you, number one is that the electorate are in a state of despair because promises have been made. They have not seen anything. Hopes have been raised repeatedly, but they were dashed. And I think many of the electorates, and this is not a kind of a generalization that lacks basis. I am a grassroots person. We do community work. We interface with young people across the nation. And I can tell you the despair is palpable. People are giving up. In fact, I told some people, if we fail to do a mass campaign awareness, next election is going to witness lower turnout than the previous election because Nigerians are where they are. Now, I don't want to accuse Nigerians because, you see, ours is a situation where the majority or a large percentage of the population are docile, and they are docile because that is just what they know. Many of us don't take time to think about the implication of our choices. And then on the other hand, you'll have to think of the weaponization of poverty, weaponization of religion and ethnicity that is being deployed against the masses. And so they don't know how to make decisions on facts, on science, but rather they make decisions on primordial sentiments. They appeal to things that should not be looked into. For example, when an average person goes to the polls, what they are looking at is from my religion, or this is from my region, or this is from my ethnic group, rather than looking at character, which is the foundation of governance, and then competence, and then capacity. Sometimes we turn the things upside down. We are looking at who is having capacity, talking about money to be able to acquire power, as against looking at who has the character to deliver on their promises, whose words is their bonds, who have fidelity. So all of these things are counting against us. And of course, the other thing that is impacting the electorate is the fidelity of the electoral umpire themselves. And generally, does election really count in Nigeria? And when we talk about alignment and realignment of mergers and all of these political parties, I will talk about the fact that does election really count? What is it of the umpire talking about INEC, which is impacting on the citizens? And then nobody is taking time to teach the citizens that, look, you need to actively participate in governance. So we are lacking in active citizen participation in governance. Rightly so, because people are not informed. And when you are not informed, you will be deformed. So citizens think we don't have power. So while whoever is leading, they believe that is the person who has power because they have not been taught. And there is no any intentional plan or a systematic way of trying to educate and conscientize the citizens to understand their rights, to understand why they need to actively participate in governance, and all of this accounts to their being in a limbo or docility, as it were. And someone is saying Nigerians are resilient people. No, I don't think it's resilience. I think it's ignorance. And somewhere he said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Yeah, so when people don't know, they can't do. Now, you and I can argue that people know because there is hunger. People know because there is insecurity. But knowledge will always go in the direction of change. When you see a person going contrary to what they claim to know, what you will see is that the person only have knowledge at cognitive level, but not in affective and not in psychomotor. And so the person does not know. They know they will do everything that they could in order to change the situation. But again and again, you see people taking 2,000 naira, 3,000 naira, some even women in the village will take one packet of Indomie or take wrappers, and then they keep chanting whoever gives it to them. Now we are at a critical point where we cannot continue to do things in the same way and expect a different result. Since 1999, we have been in this cycle. The cycle is vicious. We are losing our civility. We are coming to nearly a standstill. And so we need to begin to think together with all of this alignment and realignment, is that what are the political actors doing to conscientize Nigerians, because knowledge is power. But alas, they are trying to keep the people in ignorance, because by the ignorance of the citizenry, the gladiators keep perpetuating themselves against the citizen, and they don't care about the people. This is where we are as a nation. And do you think
there's a chance that we can break this circle before 2027? Because you're alluding to how this repetitive behavior on the part of the electorate, or the fault lines that exist within our political system or political culture, has been able to, undermine the quality of our democracy in this country, where you have, a not so conscientized electorate, or majority of the electorate not so politically active or conscious of their decisions and their inactions, and how that is also feeding the problem, and a political class that is able to exploit some of these loopholes within the culture. Do you see a chance where this circle could be broken before 2027, so we don't repeat the same mistakes again?
So what you need to know about me is that I am an incurable optimist that a new Nigeria would emerge, despite all of this madness and shenanigans that we are seeing. It's going to be a very big work. I mean, it's a humongous task, but it's doable. And it's doable once we begin to know that knowledge is power when knowledge is used. And so to begin to create awareness, and I tell you free of charge, there are a number of people who have taken the task to carry out campaigns to educate the citizens. We have been mobilizing youth across the nation to understand the ills of lack of social justice, what we are losing as a people, to understand the potentials, what we have as a nation. And I've said it everywhere, Nigerians have no reason to go, no Nigerian have reason to go to bed hungry because we are not a poor nation. God has blessed us with everything that we need to be a thriving economy. But this kind of leadership that we have been going in has been the detour for us rising and becoming a great and desirable nation. So people are taking it upon themselves. And of course, we have trained and we are still training and retraining to say we need to conscientize the people. So awareness campaign. This is how you make decision. You don't choose because the person is giving you an Indomie or is giving you wrapper or is giving you that. No, even that is reducing, by the way. If you look at the festive period we are coming out of, people used to get from these political leaders, they used to get bags of rice and things like that. But I watched to my dismay that quite a number of people didn't get bags of rice. What they got was 10 kg. And for some people, it's even noodles. It means that wherever the money is coming to be shared to the people is depleted. And so people are coming to face their reality. And we will intensify in campaign awareness campaign to educate the citizens, because it's only knowledge that frees them, that frees us. It's only knowledge that would emancipate us. And so taking it upon ourselves to activate the citizens to come into active citizens participation and to choose when the election time comes, people on the basis of character and competence, not because of what they call capacity, because we are not even asking, why is the person getting the money that is coming to share? If the person means well for you, why are they not industrializing the nation so that you are gainfully employed? But they come with some handouts and give to you whilst they take power and go to wherever you see them again until another cycle. I think people are becoming wise. The economy is not smiling. Hunger is increasing. But apart from all of this is the fact that we are driving a campaign. So help us God that we'll be able to achieve. But there is hope for this nation. I tell you the truth, there is hope. And yes, the vicious cycle would be broken by the help of God, the collective efforts of Nigerians.
Yeah, and talk to me about what we can do to amplify this particular campaign, because we have people in civil society like you, for instance, who are campaigning, carrying out voter education seminars and activities to conscientize people, to address some of these structural gaps that exist within politics. Give me a sense of what is happening in that industry and looking at the scale of the problem, because we're talking about people with PVCs in their tens of millions that you need to talk to, in a very impactful and influential way, because the message has to be able to, influence their ability to think critically about some of these choices in 2027. So, considering the scale of the problem, I mean, we're not just talking about one state here or 2 local governments or 10 local governments. We're talking about 774 local government areas across the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So what do you make of the scale of the problem and how what you're doing seems to be like a drop in the ocean, for instance?
The scale of the problem is humongous. Is mammoth. Is a monster. Is a beast. And if you look at it, it will paralyze you. You will not be able to do anything. So what I tell people is start where you are. Don't look at the magnitude of the problem. Just take one bite at a time. It's like an elephant before you are asked to eat it. Where will you start biting? But you've got to start right from where it is. Another person will come and take another place. Another person will take another place. And before you know it is finished. As I talk to you, we have young people advocating for social justice in about 400 local governments in Nigeria, and I'm not joking. Yes, we have 740 plus local governments in Nigeria, but we have been able to have this kind of followership, and we have trained a significant number of them, and we are going to train more. hopefully the goals will be actualized. But yes, the problem of a truth is big. But we start where we are. Talking about civil society, which is my area of work. I am of the civil society extraction, and civil society is supposed to be the conscience of any given society. Without them, we won't be able to prosper as a people. But sadly, and to anyone hearing me, this is personal opinion, and if you find my hoe in your garden, you've got to weed it. Ours is a civil society that has been formed in many ways that go after the person who gives them money. So we lack credibility, we lack fidelity, we lack integrity. And ours is a situation where he who pays the piper dictates the tune. It appears many of these civil society organizations are in the pockets of those who are perpetuating all of these problems that we are being faced with as a nation. And sadly, that is the case. That is the reason why you will find society organization hailing or applauding a person who is overtly corrupt, a person who is known to be corrupt. And when you talk, they will say that he has been tried in the courts of law. Where did he get the kind of money that he's sharing to people? What farm did his mother or his father plow to get those kind of money? We are not asking questions. And because we fail to understand that our systems have collapsed, many of our systems are not functioning. For example, the judiciary, to a large extent. And so, if you have money, you might be able to get the law on your side. I'm a Nigerian, and is my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with it, but this is where we find ourselves, and these are the things we need to untangle ourselves from, so that we will make meaningful progress. The good news is Nigerians here and there understand and are beginning to take it upon themselves to change the narrative. And I believe, as I have said, that it is doable, and we will get it. And hopefully, we'll begin to see change by 2027. It may not cascade everywhere, but there will be semblance of this federal constituency in this state, and gradually from there, we'll be able to flip the challenges as a nation. But there is hope for Nigeria.
Yeah, they always say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step, doesn't it? Let's talk about,
Exactly.
Certain issues that are right now shaping the polity, shaping the national debate, and one that has also polarized Nigerians along, sadly, regional lines. Case in point, the tax reform bill. It has become a North versus South conversation to a certain extent, if you consider the various levels of conversation with sociocultural groups, opinion leaders on both sides. You have religious leaders who are also divided about this. What do you make of the potential of a conversation like that, adding fuel to the fire that already exists and that is feeding the fault lines that we currently are dealing with?
We have experts. Nigerians are very good and educated in analyzing problems. But when it comes to solving, we go a wall, absent without leave or missing in action. I've listened to both sides of the debate. I have studied the tax reform bills. But this is what I choose to do and what I choose to talk about. Tax has never been our problem. It has never been. When we had money, when we had windfall from the oil boom, when we had money and IGR, sales from crude oil, all of the profits accruing, when we had all of these things, what did we do with the money? What did we do with it? So if we need to tax Nigerians to get more money, then we're asking, what is the assurance that what happened to those funds that we were having is not going to happen to this? As a matter of fact, We have been borrowing. We are known to be borrowing. What is happening to those money? So, see, it's like begging the question. Our problem is not tax. And you don't even talk about taxing or increasing the tax rate or whatever the argument is to a people who are looking for food to eat. We need to address the problem. And so it falls back to our leaders. If we don't deal with corruption, talk about the tax and taxation is not going to work. As a matter of fact, tax will never be a problem if leaders are justifying the usage of resources, if there is transparency and accountability. If I pay tax and I'm a taxpayer, I will never evade tax. When I pay tax and I have good roads, it motivates me to give more. It's not a problem. When you are taxed, but the money you've been taxed is used for the purpose that the tax is created, then it's not a problem. But we have a problem that we have not dealt with. Monies have come. There was a time in this nation that we had money, and a sitting president said, we don't know what to use this money for. We had so much. There was a time we were borrowing money to nations. We are not a poor nation. What happened to those money? And so when we spread the tax net, and today we are suffering multiple taxations, I am not happy with money in the banks because I keep seeing deductions sometimes, and I'm asking, what is all of this? So the argument for me is not tax. I don't want to look at that. I want to look at accountability, transparency, and the death of corruption. Can our leaders be sincere for once? They are flaunting wealth, and they are traveling everywhere for medical vacation. They are taking their children to the best schools in the world. They don't care about the masses. Now that the purse is depleting, they are trying to find a way to milk the citizens who barely had nothing, are struggling. Today, if you have 500,000 and you have a family of 5, what will that do to you? So for me, that is not a subject of conversation at all, but rather, what are we doing to clean the system? When we have checks and balances, when we have transparency and accountability, when the words of our leaders have fidelity, that we can cash their words in the bank, Nigerians will not worry about tax. People will give it. We are traveling the nations of the world. People use tax to build the nation. They do all manner of things, but where is our own? Do we even account for it? Can you hold any leader to account for the monies being given to them? So those are the challenges, those are the problems, my brother. So yes, it's dividing the nation, it's hitting the policy, but we are even missing the argument. Let's do first thing first.
Yeah. And how do you see this ending? Because it looks like 2025 is going to be the year to break or make this particular reform, and the president is quite adamant about it. There's no going back about it, and we see the pushback from some of these governors regarding this conversation, and what they say is a need for an inclusive conversation about what eventually will become the new legislation when it comes to tax administration. Do you see this ending in a win-win situation where nobody feels unheard or sidelined or marginalized or even cheated, for lack of a better expression?
So it will take a prophet to really answer that accurately, and to give an answer would be to argue from silence because we have not seen the future yet. But given the way Nigeria has been, we are a people that have a way of adapting to whatever situation and moving. And so if you take that as a theory, adaptation, it then means that whatever happens to this reform and is in full effect in this 2025, Nigerians will find a way to adapt to it. But the second thing is that it could bring crisis, because usually at the curve of change, It's a Chinese proverb that says the word change has two elements: opportunity or crisis. So it could be an opportunity, but it could breed crisis. Because I did say that as much as Nigerians, human beings are wired in such a way that there is just so much that you can push. When you push a person to where you can push no more, the person is going to react. And sometimes when people react, we don't like the outcome of that reaction. So this is, for me, what stands before us as we journey in this 2025. The tax reform in full swing is going to present us with just these two options, either crisis or opportunities. And we will live with the consequences of our choices imposed by our leaders. We are praying that it go well with us. We are praying that we succeed and survive. In the first place, the tax reform wouldn't have been a problem at all, but for the fact that we have not even accounted for all that has come to us, for all that we have borrowed, for all that we have had in the past. So why can't we deal with that? I think we still have enough money to fix some of the problems we are having as a nation, and then this tax then wouldn't have been a subject of debate at all. Right. So it's just setting the cart before the horse, which has always been the bane of our problem. It's like when it comes to decision making, we don't look at all of the principles for making ethical decisions before we enact the decision. It appears sometimes we are power drunk, we make cerebral decisions, not thinking about the consequences because we have power. But be it known to everyone that every choice, every decision has consequences, and we will live with the consequences of that decision. But we pray that we survive. We pray that we find help, the one who is created.
Right. Let's talk about one particular agency of government that is very central to our politics, that is central to our democracy, especially from the electoral point of view. The Independent National Electoral Commission has been at the receiving end of some very critical opinions about the quality of our elections from 1999 to date. I doubt if there is one particular election where everybody is happy. But then again, I suppose pleasing every Nigerian at any given point in time is an impossible task. But we understand that at the head of INEC, there's going to be a possible change this year because Professor Mahmoud Yakubu's tenure is coming to an end. How do you see this playing out? Because there's also been a conversation about the politicization of the electoral umpire, where certain individuals are being put in a position in INEC where they are known to be affiliated with political parties that also have an interest in the election, for instance. How do you see the president playing this one out here in the interest of Nigeria's democracy, because he seems to be the champion of African democracy, especially going by his current rhetoric in the sub-region?
This is a tough one. But let me begin by saying that we need INEC to be independent indeed. And for as long as the independent National Electoral Commission is not independent indeed, we have not seen the worst of times. And there has never been a time where the integrity of INEC has been in question like the last. The courts have done what they did. The people have done what they did. INEC have done what they did. But we need to look forward to an INEC that will be, truly independent. The outgoing chairman, Mahmoud, like many human beings, have done what he is able to do. I won't stand in judgment, but there are times when you say a word you need to keep. And I still recall that there were things that INEC said and they recanted from them. They didn't keep their words. For a child, when I'm called answer for these things, I will answer them because I have the records. So that makes that it is difficult to trust that institution, that umpire. But beside this, I am praying that the person who is coming, and I hope so, that he is going to demonstrate fidelity. But sometimes I am not optimistic about it because of many things that I have seen. Because you have to play the script of the one who appointed you. And that's the reason why it is not independent. But aside from that, today, where we began this conversation from, political parties are trying to merge, they're trying to form a mega party and all of that. And I am here saying, to what extent, for what reason? Would INEC be fair? Because it is not about a mega party. It is about the sanctity of the umpire. So as we head towards 2027, I think one of the discussions should be that, should the people decide their leader? Or should INEC decide their leader? Or should judiciary decide their leader? And I tell you what, if we want to make a headway, the people need to be allowed to choose their leaders, not INEC, not the judiciary. And what INEC need to do is to be an umpire. Now, when you float and allow a political party to go into an election, it means you have done your due diligence. When the people come to the polls, they vote people because these people, their political parties are on INEC register. They don't know what technicalities you are talking about. And so you cannot go to the courts when a person is having 500,000 votes as against another who is having 100,000 votes, and you are saying the one with 300 is one who won on the basis of technicalities. Even the judiciary know that law has to be certain and not be left with any ambiguity. How do you see white and call it black and you want it to be accepted? We just speak grammar and blow English and quote our own quote, but we are sincerely not willing to take responsibility for the healing and the progress of this nation. And you know what? If we continue that way, all of us are going to pay for it. Those who are looting our commonwealth, who do not care about the people who go in the sun, in the rain, to cast their votes, and you are now switching or canceling the votes on the basis of technicalities, someday they are going to rise against you, and you're not going to survive it. And so let's not go into that. That's the reason why we are working to see that all of these things are changed. And that's the reason why we are creating awareness. But what we must do is to advocate and to see that the people are the ones who are deciding who lead over them, not INEC, not the judiciary. The work of the INEC is to check and do their due diligence so that once a political party is on the ballot paper, it means that whoever wins on that ballot paper is the person that won the election. Every technicality and court matters should be settled before we go into the election. Not after a person has won with votes, then you regard the person or you knock off the person on technicalities.
Right.
This is Stone Age mentality.
Right.
This is Iron Age mentality. But we are in 21st century. We've got to be civil. We should go past this. It's disgusting to know that we are still trapped in that quagmire of that way of making decisions. It is wrong.
Right. And it's safe to say that it has become traditionally now a regular feature in our elections, isn't it? That you might win at the polls, but someone else might win in the courts, and the one who usually wins in the court usually takes the day. Let's end the conversation on this big talking point. I believe the elephant in the conversation is the possibility or lack of in the conversation around mergers. Since last year, we've been hearing about some of these speculations. Peter Obi working with Atiku again, Peter Obi and Kwankwaso, or maybe the three of them working together. A couple of weeks ago, many of them dismissed, at least two of them dismissed this whole idea. Rabi Musa Kwankwaso categorically being clear about no sort of agreement or conversation is taking place, and the Labour Party's Peter Obi doubled down on that same point. Where do you stand on this likelihood of another APC-like formation, possibly in the making ahead of 2027? And what do you think of those possibilities?
Yeah, so such kind of formations are not alien to us, mergers. It has happened in time past, and in 2013, APC came in, which resulted from the merger of major opposition parties, including, I believe, Action Congress of Nigeria, the Congress for Progressive Change, which is CPC, and ANPP, which is All Nigeria's People's Party. All of them came together to form what is now known as APC to defeat PDP. So, I mean, it's something that has been happening. But the current discussion between Alhaji Abubakar Atiku and Peter Obi suggests a strategic effort, I believe, to consolidate opposition ahead of election in 2017. And what they are trying to do is to unite their political base, and they aim to present a formidable challenge against the APC, which is going to potentially reach Nigeria's political dynamic. But the problem, however, is that, the success of such alliances would largely depend on various factors. What kind of factors? Including ideological coherences. Those parties that are trying to merger, do they have the same ideological stand and leadership dynamics? What are the leadership dynamics? You did look at PDP. Which part of PDP is going to go into the alliance? Because it is a known fact that leadership is bedeviled with leadership crisis, in-house crisis. So they need to solve that problem before, otherwise they will take that problem into the merger and the problem would be magnified again. And another problem is the ability to mobilize grassroots support. Now they need to know that Nigerians are becoming wise. They are going for people as against parties to deal with. And quote me, write this down. In 2027, we are going to experience that a lot. And then, as these discussions progress, they will significantly influence Nigeria's political trajectory in the coming years. But beyond merger and acquisition, I have said before, is INEC going to be fair? Because it appears as if it's not the people that win or that may win the election, but INEC and the judiciary. That is the reason why I said we need to begin beyond even talking about this merger and all of the conversations going on. We have to begin to advocate to arrive at a situation where policies would be promulgated, where laws would be passed, bills would be passed to strengthen the fact that INEC should keep her role as an umpire, do her due diligence. If there are legal issues, solve it before you put political party on the ballot.
Right.
So that once the people count, you take that.
Okay.
And stop that technicality things.
Right.
It's a shame that this is where we are. Falsehood personified. Right. We are a nation that is notoriously known for falsehood, and that is the name, and we have to call it so. But I believe going forward, Nigeria is going to rise. Nigeria is going to rise out of our ashes. Right. There's going to be a change. Because even in the current state government, there are 1, 2, 3 people that are in a modicum of the need to see this nation change. Okay. And we see people here and there who are trying to do their best to see that Nigeria change. Okay. So there are good days ahead of us. Okay. And hopefully, and more so, we are alive. Okay. And it has been said, when there is life, there is hope. Right. Okay. So let's keep on to that hope. But I must say that this hope is not a docile and passive disposition. Okay. But hope is an active participation in doing what you believe. Right. So you believe Nigeria is going to change, be like us. Get up and begin to advocate, create awareness, move people, talk to people, so that the way we think is changed. Okay. Because ultimately, we must change the
and
way
on
we
that,
think as a people.
and on that positive note, Mr. Ishaya, we're going to have to end the conversation here. Great insight from you, and we do appreciate the analysis and for taking the time to join us on Daily Politics. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Right, and that is our show for you tonight. Thank you most kindly for joining us. Daily Politics will be back tomorrow live at 8 p.m. Until then, my name is Abdullahi Ahmad. Thank you for your time.